On this week's Tony and Josh show, we will of course discuss the tragic Virginia State reporter shooting that happened on live TV. And if you break the law and are unpleasant to the cops, then kill yourself in jail. They might just name a street after you.
Participation trophies are not for everyone, including this guy's kid. Finally, somebody stands up to everyone getting a blue ribbon. What's up, Doc? Poor choices lead to a life-changing operation to this man. We'll pull back the sheet and peel off the bandages to find out what happened on this week's Tony and Josh show.
Warning. The opinions, ideas, views, emotions, and temper tantrums expressed or otherwise conveyed on the Tony and Josh show may not and most likely is not suitable for all audiences and therefore should not be heard by anyone unless supervised by an appropriate nanny state. Enjoy!
Yes, this is episode 85. If you're new to the Tony and Josh show, we're here to inform, entertain, and give you a laugh or two. We've searched the interwebs and found these earth-shaking stories to bring to you tonight.
That's right, Tony. We will, of course, be discussing the Virginia State reporter shooting that happened live on TV. And if you break the law and are unpleasant to cops, then kill yourself in jail. They'll probably name a street after you, too. And participation trophies are not for everyone, including this guy's kid. Finally, somebody stands up to everyone getting a blue ribbon. My hero! What's up, Doc? Poor choices lead to a life-changing operation to this man. We'll pull back the sheet and peel off the bandages coming up in just a little bit.
I'm really nervous. But anyway, first, we want you guys to give us a call using our SpeakPipe feature on our website at TonyandJoshShow.com or TonyandJosh.com. Tweet us during the show at Tony and Josh Show, and don't forget to include us in your tweets with hashtag Tony and Josh. Now, we've actually had some people doing that, Josh, and I'm pretty damn tickled about it.
That is awesome. And yeah, we'll be maybe adding a segment to the show later on about tweets and Twitter and the stuff that kind of happens with us through that and that sort of thing. But for now, let's get to some of those voicemails.
We got a Nikki G tonight. We got a couple of them, but let's get to the first one.
Hey, this is Nikki G. And I can't get past this whole armadillo shootout thing you guys talked about a couple of weeks ago. I'll leave it to Josh to talk about eating the dang thing. And if any of you are familiar with the other show, then you know who Dan Cole is. He's probably got a good Dutch oven recipe for it. All right, gentlemen, I will chat you later. And you have a good one. Bye.
He needs to call that on over Dan, the 4x4 podcast, and ask him about that.
Yeah.
So here's our next one.
Hey, this is Nikki G, and I too grew up watching Francis the Talking Mule. Mostly they play it on Saturday afternoons.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big fan of the remake of it. They've tried rebranding it. And the movie was called Inconvenient Truth with Al, the talking jackass. All right, guys, I'll chat you later. You have a good one. Bye.
I'm liking Nikki G and more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I was, I think it was probably late at night. I would see a whole series of the Talking Mule, the late night stuff, like on the local Fox affiliate, it seems, back when I was just probably a teenager. So let's get to our final Nikki G.
Hey, this is Nikki G, and sorry to call so late, but I just caught the AMC's Fear the Walking Dead, the first episode. All I got to say is, P.U. It's obviously AMC's feeble attempt to cash in on the franchise, sort of like CSI did with CSI Miami, CSI LA, CSI New Orleans, and CSI blah, blah, blah. The show is predictable. I wouldn't be surprised if Gary Sinise and Ice Cube show up on this show, too. They took 45 minutes to tell us that the cast is a bunch of misfits, a dysfunctional family, which is pretty much what Gilligan Island and Full House did in the first 5 minutes of their series. I think this show is doomed to fail. The only way AMC could bring it back from the dead, pun intended, is if they brought Gilbert Gottfried on board.
Oh, no.
All right, gentlemen, I'll chat you later. You have a good one. Bye.
Oh, gosh, the zombies are literally chewing my ankles off.
Oh, that was a great joke that he got fired for, too. But anyway, yeah, I have to say I have not seen that show, but that's kind of the way I felt about it without even seeing it. without any investigation on it, and that is perhaps the reason why I did not give a rat's ass when it came on. So I have not seen the show. Actually, I was thinking about talking to you, Josh, and see if you wanted to, and this is before the first episode came out, and see if you wanted to make time to watch that and perhaps comment on it. I figured if nothing else, we could say what a big piece of shit this is.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely going to be commenting more and more as October rolls around and AMC airs Walking Dead, not just this little prequel that they're
real
doing
one
right now. Yeah,
the calorie packed episodes.
Yeah, so you guys can look forward to bonus episodes, actual separate download from us around the second, third week of October after that first show begins. In the meantime, Tony and I are going to talk about whether or not we will do that other thing. Because we are Walking Dead fans without exception, and this one is something we're definitely going to have to give some discussion about because I don't know. I'm on the fence. I'm a little bit on the side with Nikki G, but I'm a little bit on the side of hey, it's Walking Dead and this is awesome. So it's
well,
something
if nothing else,
we'll have to break into.
If nothing else, there's a buttload of snarky comments that can be made.
No, absolutely. Maybe we'll wait till the season ends and we'll do a one show recap of the whole thing because they're going to do it back to back as Fear the Walking Dead ends, The Walking Dead begins.
Oh, and, really? That's
actually very very well planned. Yeah. So the season finale or the show finale of Fear the Walking Dead will happen 1 week, and the immediately following week after that will be the first season 6 episode of The Walking Dead. So
gotcha. All right, well that's interesting. So let's talk about these reviews and how people can give us
really
reviews.
Cool. This is really cool. We every week, guys, ask you to head over to Stitcher or iTunes, anywhere we are at, and leave us a review or a comment. We love the feedback from you guys, and our calls to action have actually made you guys step up and give us some great content as well.
We've made them feel bad.
We've guilted you into it, if nothing else. So we got one here by Matt Revo Guy Hoffman on August 25th, 2015. It says, great podcast. Give us a 5-star rating. I'd love it even if they did lean on my way politically. The show is just plain fun to listen to. From normal to off-the-wall stories are hashed out as only they can. My only complaint, he says, is they don't pimp the show enough on their Jeep Talk show. That's our other podcast for you guys out there. Listened for months before I knew about it. You won't be disappointed. And so very kind words from Matt Revo Guy Hoffman, giving us a 5-star review there. Thank you very much, Matt. Appreciate the feedback.
Very kind words. Thank you. And that's a recent one. I think that one came in yesterday, actually. So I've actually started making a point to check for the reviews because we're getting them enough and more often on the Tony and Josh show than in the past. I think we might be catching on. It only takes about 85 shows, Josh.
Yeah, something along those lines. Well, hey, something else that keeps happening that we never have enough time to get to is a bunch of stories in the news. Now, we usually kind of handpick a few out there each and every week to bring to you guys, and I always come through with one extra special for you, and this show will be no exception, but figured we'd go ahead and just very briefly announce some of the noteworthy news that's out there this week. Now,
that.
Trump wins over verbal conflict with Univision reporter. If you guys haven't seen the videos I'm on this, it's actually pretty good material. I'm starting to like Trump a little bit more and more as all this stuff goes on. Really handled himself well, and it's rather entertaining nonetheless on how this Univision reporter was handled.
He is entertaining,
if nothing else, indeed. And Jared Fogle, you guys know him formerly of Subway. We had him in the news last week. Well, he was brought down by a porn-sniffing dog. That's right. The materials that were found, the materials found in his possession were actually rooted out by a specially trained dog to sniff out electronic media, and can differentiate between that of like an alarm clock or a remote control and stuff like a hard drive or a jump drive or something along those lines. It can actually tell the difference between regular electronics and flash media. Yeah. Interesting stuff right there. The Dawn spacecraft takes closest pics ever of Ceres. Now, we have been talking about this nonstop pretty much since NASA said that this is happening. New images that have been released today are from only 915 miles off the surface at a resolution of 450 feet per pixel. I don't think your camera on your phone can do that. So in October, Dawn will remap Sirius from an altitude of only 230 miles. I think, Tony, by then we will finally know what those bright spots are on the surface of this dwarf planet.
Nougat, creamy nougat center.
Speaking of crazy stuff in space, the internet now sees a Star Wars ship on Mars.
Of course.
Oh, God. So obviously there's no accounting for crazy. Hey, speaking of crazy, there was a tragic incident that happened live on TV today. And this happened over in Virginia State around 6:45 a.m. at a little place called Bridgewater Plaza in Monetta, Virginia. 41-year-old Vester Lee Flanagan decided to take his vengeance out on two innocent people, injuring a third, and then later took his own life. He was a former news reporter that worked at the station there in Virginia. He went by Bryce Williams on the air, as most on-air celebrities typically go by names other than their real names. He was let go because he was very difficult to work with. He was easily offended and oftentimes feared in the newsroom. Afterwards, and I guess this is not the first time he's done this, he then claims racism because he was a man of color. He posted a video, and this is where things get really, really twisted.
It really is twisted.
He posted a video of himself carrying out the shooting on both his Twitter and his Facebook account. 14 shots were fired, 9 at first. There was a pause. I'm guessing he reloaded, and then 6 more. He just right after the incident then faxed a suicide explainer note to the station right after the shooting, and used the June shooting at a Charleston church as part of the reason for his crime. He took the police on a less than 2-mile chase through the streets and was on the phone with the news station while all this was going on, I guess leaving a voicemail and saying something like, the police are after me, they are everywhere, something along those lines. And then he basically died at the scene of a self-inflicted gunshot wound around 1:30 p.m. this afternoon. The deceased is Allison Parker, 24 years old, had actually just celebrated her 24th birthday this week. And she was dating an anchorman from the station. They were very much in love, had just moved in together, and were working on a new life together. The cameraman, Adam Ward, 27, was a very accomplished cameraman, also a licensed journalist as well, and he died at the scene. The female victim, the third person, the interviewee, the woman in white, as she's sometimes referred to in the video, is named Vicky Gardner. And she was also shot, but miraculously, after many hours of surgery today, she is recovering after her attack, and has suffered at least one shot, bullet wound in the back, and thankfully she is going to live to tell the tale. This man, unfortunately, has taken the coward's way out, and the shooter took his own life.
This whole thing was cowardly.
This whole thing really, really was cowardly. The way that it was handled, the way it was executed. I guess this guy's Facebook timeline, obviously his Facebook and his Twitter accounts have since been suspended. But for the brief period of time that they were up and open this morning, people who did see it and reporting on it said this guy's timeline basically reads like a manifesto of a crazy man. It is insane. The kind of thought process and decision making that would lead somebody to not only make the decision to carry this out, but then to carry it out in the way that he did. And it's extremely ballsy. And I hate saying the word coward and ballsy in the same sentence, but to show up to an on the scene, in the field, live report, news report, and to toy with the victims by recording your approach. And then you can see in his first person account, there's not a lot of speech that's there, but you can see in his first person account, he's holding the phone with one hand, and you're looking basically at what he sees, and you see him raise the gun up in the view of the camera, the first person camera, and aim the gun right at the female news reporter. And then he brings the gun back to his side and kind of takes a couple of steps, and then he brings the gun back up just as the cameraman is panning back around towards where the interview is taking place, and the man opens fire. And all of this is caught on tape from 2 different angles, and it is just gut-wrenching.
This is very much what you would expect to see in a sensationalized movie.
Almost. I mean, you at first you kind of your mind can't quite process exactly what is happening. Is this Hollywood? Is this real? Am I seeing what I'm seeing?
Seems to be too set up, actually.
A little bit, but in the day and age where in 5 square miles there's probably 10,000 cameras.
Mm-hmm.
It's not out of the realm of expectation for this sort of thing to happen, especially with the degree and the intensity of these shootings that are happening. I mean, this sort of stuff is even struck in my little hometown here in Oregon, which ordinarily is relatively peaceful. Not to say that your hometown isn't, but nonetheless, it just goes to show that crazy can happen anywhere at any time.
Yeah.
And this goes so far beyond just, a disgruntled employee. This guy had serious issues. From what I understand, he was being seen by a mental medical professional, and was on medication.
I wonder if it was the same guy that works at the VA that was telling people to kill themselves.
Yeah, jeez.
It's absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible. I mean, this young woman, the young man, and of course the attack occurred because of his knowledge of how those remotes worked, having been in the industry. He knew that the cameraman wasn't going to be focused, pardon the pun, on him and his gun, but on the reporter, the interview that was happening. So it was almost like shooting fish in a barrel. And
in a sense, yeah. I mean, because you'd think that as this man approached, that this woman would have either the interviewee or the interviewer would have seen him and what he was doing out of their peripheral.
Mm-hmm.
But either A, he was recognized and not seen as an immediate threat, or B,
they were professionals and they were focusing on doing their job.
True. And with that being said, out of your peripheral vision, you see somebody, holding something up, maybe they recognize that he was holding up a camera.
He could have been videotaping them, or videoing them with his phone, out of your peripheral vision. Well, I mean, out of your peripheral vision, you just see somebody interested that perhaps is being a little rude by getting that close to what's going on.
True.
But this day and age, we're all used to rude. I mean, look at what happens in movie theaters with people on their phones or standing too close to you when you're trying to have a private conversation. People don't understand the buffer zone anymore, it seems.
Really. And so, that could have played a role as to, maybe why, action wasn't taken, why it wasn't, what was happening, what was about to take place. Really,
nobody expected this to happen. Nobody expected this to happen. I mean, it's just like the 911 things, the 9/11 aircraft. Nobody expected, I'm sure, on those aircraft.
Broad daylight.
Well, nobody expected on the aircraft to take over a plane and take it over with box cutters. I mean, come on. So
here's what I'm saying is that in broad daylight at 6 to 8 feet away from you in your peripheral, you see somebody raise a gun at you and hold it there for several seconds.
Yeah.
Raise it back down, all while holding a camera phone up, it seems like, I mean, and I hate to say this, but it almost seems like they were blind. Obviously the cameraman, his back was turned,
right.
But there was 2 people that were, I mean, almost looking right at him.
Well, if she remembered this guy, if she remembered his face, it may have been a bit of well, let's just ignore him and hope he goes away.
True.
And not, what is he, especially if somebody holds something up that like they're pointing at you, that like they're holding a gun. It's obviously not going to be a gun because no sane person would come to a live interview and point a gun at me. So he's probably just messing with me because he's an asshole. From 2 years ago, I remember this guy. He's an ass. They had to call the police whenever he was fired. They had to call the police to escort him out of the building because he was so upset and not able to contain himself properly to just say, okay, great, and then leave. And I don't know, file a grievance, file a lawsuit or whatever. Just, But in journalism, you're taught to that if you have a stalker or somebody who is basically craving attention, is trying to get their
their 5 minutes of fame or trying to win an argument or something, you don't give them any attention because that just fuels the fire.
Yeah.
And so ignoring him, I guess maybe could have been part of their training. I don't know.
I think that it's just one of those situations where you can't wrap your brain around, you can't grasp mentally what's going on, because it couldn't possibly be what it seems to be. And it didn't sound like it went on for very long before it was clear what it was, a deadly encounter.
Unless this is some Orwellian-like type of prank, and we are all having the wool pulled over our eyes. Last time I checked, it wasn't April 1st. This is definitely real. This did happen.
Yeah.
And I mean, just our condolences go out to all the families and people involved in this, because it's such a tragic accident that happened to two people that really had a very, very bright future in their entire lives ahead of them still.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Well, let's get over to a more, I don't want to say interesting or pleasing story, but something
this is interesting, Tony. This is very interesting.
Dark.
And I'm glad that you brought this story up tonight, because
is this mine?
This is, well, yeah, I'd like to take the reins on this one, because this is something that definitely gets my gears grinding.
Yeah, I did. This one I saw earlier in the week and stuck it in the show notes so we would make sure we had it tonight. So I'm not a big sports nut. You may recognize this name, Josh. James Harrison giving back his kids' participation trophies because they didn't earn it. Can you believe such a thing?
Finally.
So James Harrison,
I've been waiting for somebody to step up and do this.
Well,
seriously.
I mean, this is a pro ball player. He knows that you have to put in a lot of effort into something to get somewhere. So he's not going to sit there and teach his kids that you don't have to do a damn thing to get where all you have to do is bitch about it so you can get $15 an hour or an Obama phone or, just all this crap that's been going on for the last 8 years that everybody's going to get free stuff if you whine and bitch enough. So anyway, James Harrison is out there on a mission. The Steelers linebacker posted a long Instagram message this weekend about trophies his sons received. Why? Well, the boys received the trophies for participating, not winning, just participating.
Makes me sick.
And Harrison did not like that at all.
Rightly so.
James said on Instagram, I came home to find my boys received 2 trophies for nothing. Participation trophies. While I'm very proud of my boys for everything they do and will encourage them to the day I die, these trophies will be given back until they earn a real trophy.
Good.
I'm not sorry for believing that everything in life should be earned, and I'm not about to raise 2 boys to be men by making them believe that they are entitled to something just because they tried their best, because sometimes your best is not enough.
That's right.
And that should drive you to want to do better. Not cry and whine until somebody gives you something to shut you up and keep you happy. God bless America. This is exactly
God bless this guy.
Yes,
Seriously.
This is exactly what people should be doing with their kids. You don't want to discourage your children, but up until about age 3, maybe 4, it's great to pat on the back on every little thing they do, but after that, they need to start learning, certainly before they get to kindergarten, because they're going to be in competition with other children.
And this sense of entitlement is now so ingrained into society and really, at this point, a couple of generations deep, that I see it more and more everywhere I go, and it just makes me sick. Because I when I went to school, I was involved in team sports and stuff as a kid, and I worked for everything that I have, and when I participated in sports and stuff, I gave it my all, and I didn't always win. I was a very competitive athlete, and I did hold some records, but nonetheless, it wasn't always like that. It wasn't always a W in the left category. So it's you have to instill this sense of loss and this sense of that you are not entitled to get this. Everybody is not the same. Look, I'm all for equal rights and everything, but not everybody is created equal. There are people out there that are better at things than other people, and those people are the ones that need to be awarded. not everybody, just for simply showing up and trying.
And if you believe that if you try harder that you will succeed, you're wrong. There are certain people that have certain abilities, whether it be through IQ or physical abilities, that you'll never have. You can certainly get better. You can certainly have a personal best, but get used to it. Somebody's always going to be bigger, better, faster, smarter than you are. Do the best job that you can do. And I'll tell you what, you'll go a long way just by doing the best you can do. And, it's disappointing when you lose. So getting these participation trophies doesn't do anything except teach kids and I guess even adults, Josh, in some situations.
Because honestly, if the parents who are allowing this, the parents who get behind this kind of movement, the parents who endorse this sort of thing are culpable. They're just as much to blame. They're the ones who are helping this along. And they should really be, taken out back and beaten with a rubber hose. I'm sorry.
Well,
I've said it.
A hard rubber hose, a very hard rubber hose. So anyway, let's move on from this, and hats off to James Harrison. Thank you very much, and thank you for actually articulating my beliefs so well, and making sure that your children are going to be raised properly. At least in this instance, there's a lot of ways to screw up, and I'm sure you'll find those ways, like all of us have done at one time or another. So this is kind of a very sad and also interesting story. We've talked about this before, I believe, Josh.
This name was in the show a few episodes back, and this happened in Tony's home state, in fact. And this is the familiar name to the show because we did talk about why this person was in the news to begin with.
Right. So Sandra Bland, you may have heard this name on your local news or national news. Passed away at her own hands. It was determined that she had committed suicide while in the county jail, I believe. But there was a new news story today. She's had a street named after her. So some of you may recall the very sad story of a young lady that killed herself here in Houston, Texas. The controversy occurred because she was arrested by a Texas state trooper after she failed to extinguish a cigarette after she was pulled over for failing to signal a turn. So doesn't really sound like that should be leading up to a death sentence. And there was a big public outcry because this was videotaped by the dash cam on the Texas State Troopers patrol car. And I think there was concern that there was an abuse of power because he arrested her for not signaling a turn and not extinguishing a cigarette, and then she later committed suicide. And of course, with all these, Sandra Bland happens to be an African American. She's black, so there was the concern, I think, of the minority population that something nefarious had happened. That she didn't commit suicide; she was actually killed in jail.
Well, that's the knee-jerk reaction, especially after the dash cam footage and everything else kind of, led you believe, or at least think that, maybe she was roughed up a little bit or mishandled, mistreated, maybe. And there were some reports and videos I saw of other law enforcement officers watching the video and saying, that's not the way that, that situation should have been handled. Well, everybody can armchair quarterback, and hindsight is always 20/20.
They're taught
all that sort of stuff.
Not disregard, to diffuse the situation instead of escalating it. And I don't think that this officer did that. I mean, I think they specifically say, you don't want to take somebody to jail for a minor traffic incident. So anyway, after her arrest and booking into jail, she was found hanging by a plastic bag around her neck. Now, as a father, I can relate to a degree how horrific it would be to lose a child. Like Sandra Bland's family lost her. Honestly, I really wish this had turned out otherwise.
Well, yeah. So nobody, wants to, lose a family member. And honestly, this woman was not what you would call, scum of the earth. I think she had a degree. I think she was was looking at a job at her alma mater.
Even if she was a scum of the earth, this didn't need to happen. And I don't like the idea of young people, going through this and losing their lives, even if it is at their own hands. And certainly, if she was not in prison at the time, she probably wouldn't have been depressed. I believe she was actually starting a job at Prairie View A&M, a college in Houston, that day. So she was obviously unable to attend her first day at school, being in jail, and that probably weighed on her, and that's probably one of the reasons why she committed suicide. But I'm a little concerned by this, Josh, and I don't know what your take on this is, but hopefully we'll find out. This young lady has had a street named after her, and certainly groups that have that ability to name streets are certainly well within their right to do so. But coming off the last story that we just had about the participation trophies, this almost sounds like a bad decision trophy, because I don't know if you remember the video, but Sandra Bland was very argumentative, had a very negative tone with the Texas State Trooper.
Oh, absolutely.
During the altercation that occurred, and refused to do some basic things. He was asking her to extinguish her cigarette, and she was explaining to him that she was in her personal vehicle and she didn't have to do that. I don't know about you, Josh, but I don't try to antagonize the police. And this may be typical behavior for Sandra. I don't know, because this is the only one video that I have to go by. But I can't help but wonder, because of all this Black Lives movement and the general irritation that black people seem to be having with the police, I can't help but wonder if that isn't the reason why she was talking that way to the police officer, because, she's had enough. She's had enough of the police thinking that they can push black people around. And I wonder if this isn't what caused the escalation. Certainly the cop didn't have to continue with the escalation. He didn't have to dive into that. But if I'm telling my kids how they're supposed to deal with a police officer, I tell them to be respectful, no matter how they act to them, be respectful, because once that stop is done, if necessary, you can always take it back to the police station. You can always file charges against that officer. You can always make life a holy hell for them afterwards. But at the moment that they've got you pulled over, you be respectful. You do what you're told. And if for any reason you feel uncomfortable, you ask for a supervisor. But you do so politely.
And I guess some people just are not brought up, taught, raised that way, whatever. And whether that's God, what's the term I'm looking for?
Cultural?
Well, that could have gone that way too. I'm the direction I'm leaning more towards is nature or nurture.
Oh, yeah.
So
how about common sense?
Really, and this again, and I hate coming back to the same thing, but it all falls back on the parents.
Yeah, it really does.
No, I'm great. She was a grown-ass woman.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Nonetheless, she still had parents that raised her, and they obviously didn't raise her with the right kind of values. I'm sorry.
Well, that's a possibility. That what you're saying is a possibility. I don't know enough about her to be able to make that determination, or the parents our parent to know, be able to make that determination. But it certainly seems that way. So I officially am going to take the stand that when people do not behave properly, do not show police the proper respect, nail their ass to the wall afterwards. I'm wondering, I'm fine with that. But
is
if
Michael
you
Brown
don't,
going to get a street named after him now too?
If you don't,
he was a criminal. He didn't do what the cop had told him to do. He got in trouble, and obviously he ended up dead by a different means. But nonetheless, the circumstances are very similar on the surface.
He was trying to wrestle a pistol away from a police officer. That's more than rude. That's criminal. But this is a situation where she didn't behave properly. She didn't control her temper properly with the police officer. It escalated. The officer, and I think incorrectly, escalated it, and it led to her demise at her own hands. I don't think anybody killed her while she was in the county jail. I just don't like the idea of this because, our story about the shooter. I mean, if nothing else, somebody may go, well, wow, look at all this attention that Sandra Bland got. She even had a street named after her. And all I have to do is get a cop to react, to suck a cop in, get him to react, and then I can kill myself in the hands of officials. And wow, I'll have my 15 minutes of fame. Guys, we do not need to be given participation trophies to people that are not acting correctly and responsibly. And taking your own life is not responsible.
Certainly not. Certainly not.
So again, my wholehearted sorrow for the family that lost Sandra Bland. And I know it makes you feel better that her life mattered, that she's going to have a street named after her. But I think at the end of the day, whenever the sadness is minimized in your heart, you'll look back on this and say, you know, why was my aunt, my daughter, my cousin given this honor for what happened? And I just don't like the precedents that it sets to other people, and especially our children.
I'm with you on that, Tony. Well, we've had a show full of all kinds of seriousness, and leave it to me.
What
to
the
go
hell?
ahead.
How the hell did that happen?
I know. We don't do that too often, so I'm going to go ahead and shake things up right here, right now. And I put a title on this.
Wait, I'm sorry, Josh. If you guys are eating while you are listening to this, and if you're having hot dogs or sausage, put it away for a moment.
Well, now, most of you by now who have listened to more than a few of these shows would realize that as we reach our close, the last story of the show typically is of a certain caliber. This is no exception. What's up, Doc? Is what I have called this story. Well, I've titled it anyway. And no, this isn't a story about a man giving it to a bunny, although that would have been a good one, or even a sex act with a carrot. Nor is this a story about a Warner Brothers or Bugs Bunny in any way whatsoever. This is a tale about two unlicensed doctors who are facing charges for performing botched surgeries. Whew. Thought I was going to hit you with something nasty, didn't I? Didn't you? Well, on the surface, this story is not all that unusual, but that's where most of my stories take their beloved turns for the worse.
Thank God.
I shall call this one, if at first you don't succeed, hack again. Vanity is one thing that's ingrained into human nature. It rears its ugly head early and often in our development and is the basis for most retail, beauty, and personal hygiene markets, not to mention automotive, alcohol, and a mile-long list of other companies in this world, capitalizing on the fact that many people aren't happy with the way they look or how they're perceived in this world. And that all that can be eliminated if you just buy their product or service. The epitome of this is the industry of personal enhancement. And at the top of the totem pole are plastic surgeons. These scalpel-wielding Barbie and Ken doll makers have two goals in life: make themselves rich while making you think you're beautiful. One particular Florida, see, I told you this stuff always happens in Florida. One particular Florida man was apparently not happy with some of his appearance. So instead of buying a new car or changing where he buys his clothes or going to the gym, he went to the extreme and started the slippery slope of plastic surgery. Now, let me say there's nothing wrong with this choice. It's his own free will, and we live in a free society. Anybody should be able to make the choice of making themselves a little bit cosmetically better if that's what they want to do. What he did wrong more than anything else was choose the wrong surgeon. Now, I don't know where these people come from, but I swear this particular person must have been advertising their practice on Craigslist or something. This week, a Miami judge has officially charged 48-year-old Neri Carvajal Gonzalez for unlicensed healthcare causing serious injury. Oh, that sounds bad. She was picked up this week after landing at Miami International Airport and is being held on $100,000 bond. Okay, this sort of stuff probably happens all the time, right? Oh, how wrong you must be. Neri had allegedly operated on her victim, an unnamed 55-year-old hairstylist, several times before she performed the bungled procedure. She'd given the man cosmetic facials and injected filler into his buttocks to enhance their shape. The victim paid Carvajal Gonzalez $2,500 for the butt injection, though investigators said there was a hole in his buttocks that fluid was leaking from. He decided to go forward with the worst mistake of his life after this. Now, despite a leaky bum, I mean, typically there should only be one hole that fluid leaks out of your ass from, right?
It just reminds me of a bad time at Taco Bell.
I've got one of those stories, but that's another show. Despite this, our unnamed victim decided it would be a good idea to go ahead with his penis enlargement surgery anyways.
Of course.
Of course, because what else makes sense, right?
Here's mud in your eye.
Well, in February, Carvajal Gonzalez, this is the woman surgeon, allegedly put an implant in the man's penis to make it longer and thicker. But the fillers she used permanently disfigured him. The court documents released today have testimony from medical investigators, and I must warn you, if you are squeamish, you may want to fast forward a little bit and if you haven't done that yet, well, then you're just as sick as twisted as I figured you were. The victim's penis, quote, was now incredibly small, yet very, very swollen. The skin that appeared to be still attached was very drawn and tight. See, I'm having a hard time reading this.
You're feeling the story. Detach, Josh. Detach.
Hard time. And the skin around the shaft had been completely removed and was raw. Now, at this point, what would you do? Go to a real medical professional? Maybe call the cops? Yeah, all that, and grab a 5-gallon bucket of ice and then a whole thing of Neosporin and about a metric ton of painkillers. For repairs, he went back to Carvajal Gonzalez, the person who botched him to begin with.
Hey, he spent $2,500 of good money with her, so she needs to fix it.
Well, she then made things worse by taking the man to meet Mark Schreiber, a fake doctor known as Dr. Mark, at a warehouse in Hialeah. A warehouse.
Dr. Mark would be a good indication of a fake doctor. Yes, I believe so.
There's so many red flags in all this. It's not even funny. Schreiber, Dr. Mark, who's 60 years old, had already spent 2 years in jail, starting in 2008 performing unlicensed plastic surgeries. The victim reportedly paid Schreiber $1,000 to get Carvajal Gonzalez implant removed. After the procedure, the man removed his bandages to find that his penis had been unbelievably mutilated even further. Schreiber told him that the look was normal and that the swelling, bleeding, and hanging skin would eventually go away. And then he stopped answering the victim's calls.
Oh, of course. Whiny little bitch.
Consummate professional.
Literally now a bitch.
Earlier this month, Schreiber was arrested on a charge of unlicensed healthcare causing serious injury. He's reportedly being held without bond. The victim's ordeal reads like a horror script, quote unquote. A prosecutor from the DA's office says it's almost unbelievable that a human being can voluntarily do this to another human being, not once, not twice, but multiple times. This was not an isolated incident either. Carvajal Gonzalez solicits business and butchers people. The victim says he's permanently disfigured and can't even have sex anymore. He also feels no sensation when he urinates and suffers from painful, spontaneous erections. That last part there kind of sort of reminds me of some of my times in junior high. Look, I have no idea what the state of the victim is, and obviously this is an ongoing case.
I would think California.
No, this is Florida, but yeah, this is obviously an ongoing case, and this is just at the point of charges being filed and stuff like that. So we don't know sentencing. We really don't know all of the details, and this is just so far what has been released. And I thought I would go ahead and bless your ear holes with this lovely story.
Now, if there was any reason to have a street named after you, this would be a reason to have your street named after you. And I can't
big boulevard that goes a really long way.
Yeah, this would be more of a little trail at this point. But I can't help but think when these so-called doctors get out of prison, I wonder if they would be interested in doing any testicle gold plating.
Oh boy.
A past story that we've had on our show.
Yeah, no, it was. That's for our veteran listeners. Right?
Well, that's a show. We ran a little long tonight, but what we lacked in timeliness, we made up for in passion. So
certainly, just like this last guy, it's not necessarily the size of the boat anymore; it's the motion of the ocean.
That's all he's got left. It's like the size doesn't matter. If you don't got it, then at least you got to hang on to that. I guess maybe you can hang on to it. Maybe it's more of a buttonhole. So anyway, Josh, let's get long way from the story. Talk us out. Do that beautiful talk out that you do.
Oh, guys, we would definitely want you to check out our website. It's where all the good stuff is happening. Over at TonyandJosh.com, you can find our entire show archive for your listening pleasure. I think we might even still have some videos up there for you guys to check out as well. Clear back to episode 1. That's a whole lot of Tony and Josh for you guys to catch up on. All for free, and also on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and even TuneIn.com. In any of those places, you guys can leave us a 5-star review, and of course, leave us a comment, which we definitely love, and will of course read on the show.
Want to say a quick shout out to Dusty Dunn, who's been giving us these story ideas, and he gave us one this week that we'll hopefully be using here in the future. But Dusty and anybody else that's interested in giving us show ideas, Dusty's been sharing them with us on Facebook. Just go over to facebook.com, do a search for Tony and Josh Show, and you will see our happy little faces right there on your screen, and you can leave us information, little tidbits of wisdom, or stories that you can that you found that may be sicker and twisted than what we can come up with. Hopefully, we'll still be able to use them.
Absolutely.
And you can
if you guys know Dusty Dunn, well, by all means, give him a pat on the back, and then immediately check him into a mental
a
facility.
twisted pat on the back, and then wash your hands. So also too, if you want to go over to TonyandJosh.com, you can put comments there on each one of our shows, and you can reach out to us there with comments and how well we're doing, etc. We're pretty much anywhere you would want to be and would like to be, as long as it's not at a warehouse with somebody that has a name of Dr. Mark.
Oh man, my legs are crossed.
I'm an innie now. I'm not outie. I'm like one of those hidden turtles they talked about on Seinfeld. You guys have a great
show.
You guys
Good
have a
night,
great
everybody.
night.